Is it picking up anything?
Shannon, I need to be in the Google. Do I need to be in the Google Meet too? Do I need to be in the Google Meet, Shannon?
Yeah. That's so you can hear. Or reply.
Yeah, I did. Okay. We'll go ahead and stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Should I just unmute that front?
I need to mute myself. Yes.
All of it. This one is unmuted.
And they can hear us through that.
It should catch it, yeah.
Okay. Can you all hear me on Google Meet? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay, next is public participation and recognition, public comment. Members of the public who wish to speak to the board should complete a request card prior to the start of the meeting. This section of the meeting will be reserved for comments from the public. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Criticism of individuals is not in order. Any comments? Sure. Next is board correspondence. Staff says she can't understand sitting in front of it. Okay.
Sarah, I cannot hear anything that you're saying or doing. We're understanding, we really don't know what's happening, just so you guys know.
Can you hear me now, Val?
Yeah, just unmute and mute when you guys are talking.
Okay.
And then I'll unmute this one so there's no feedback.
Val, can you hear me? Val, can you hear me? Oh, wait, I'm seeing.
Is it because she's muted?
Can you hear me now, Val?
Yes, yes.
Oh my gosh.
You can still
I
hear
was
me?
like, I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Is there anybody who has comments? I have a statement. Members of the District 428 community, it is a great feeling that the Department of delivered the murder of George Floyd. In our community, we are aware of this accountability and that the justice will come only from the dismantling of systemic and institutionalized racism that allows our Black and brown brothers and sisters to have their lives lived away and live with perpetual threat ahead of us. Only 10 miles to the north of the trial, 20-year-old Devontae Wright's life was taken by police after he was pulled over for air freshener changing in his rear view. So fearful was he of being pulled over that he called his mother to ask her what to do. Clearly terrified to leave his vehicle, realizing that it could very well be his end, and devastatingly it was. Adam Toledo was 13 years old and gunned down as he turned to police with empty gray sheets. And so many more. We do not accept the status quo of our students of color living in a state of fear of being pulled over and their families left anxiously worrying every time they leave home. Again, racism and hatred have no place in DeKalb. We are committed to examining our history, our policy and practice, and we will continue to take across-the-board action to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion. We will continue to call out injustice and dismantle racism within us and around us. We stand in solidarity and with support our communities of color and recognize that we must all face the reality that our region, our county, and our city are not immune to acts of violence and racial injustice. We are here to listen, engage, and act. We will continue to strengthen our commitment to cultivating justice, equity, and inclusion across the cultural community and beyond. Next is recognition for the Works Award for Excellence in Education. Michelle Levy.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Cheryl Mack. I am part of the Child Education Foundation Board Committee Award. Every year, the Board Committee is going to have activities. Each year, the Works Foundation presents the Works Award for Excellence in Education. This award was established in 1989 by Ben Conte to recognize the Works family, William, Alpha, and Jean, all of whom were educators in the town. This award is made available annually to recognize the distinguished service of outstanding individuals who raise young people sites, promote a program or organization, who have students' sense of human values and purpose. Selection of the Works Award was made from persons nominated by the District 428 staff and was based upon the nominee's ability to positively influence, motivate, and inspire students. Board's committee members are Lori Alicia Piper, Nina Good, Lily M., Marina Avalos, Joe Cochran, Anna Larson, Connie Bowman, Kim Lyle, and myself. This year's nominees are the DH Target Team, Brad Becker, Eric Summers, Tim Beckett, and Kevin Guerra, whose letters were mostly heartfelt, heartwarming letters of how this team has protected your kids and made them successes. Lisa Gorshall, the unflappable principal at ULBC, who can manage any kind of crisis with a great sense of humor. Katie Davis with that, because inspiring kids in her classroom, does them for everyone else. She is the go-to person, the other head of ULBC. And Denise Fleming, the 428 Hectosa, who common theme of her letters was she's instructive, she's patient, and she does not make us feel down. And now it is my honor to present the 2021 Works Award for Excellence in Education to this recipient, who is also known as Standing in the Jets, who has been said to have a servant heart and has been an extraordinary member of Lincoln Elementary staff, one great educator, and Harrison. Congratulations, everyone.
So supportive and helpful, and anytime that I ask them, hey, do you want to be in a music video? They're like, yeah, what do you want me to do? So they've just been amazing to be a part of the school culture with, and I just really, really appreciate the award and appreciate all the people that kind of came together to make all that happen.
Congratulations, Don. Next, we have recognition of our 20-year service award to Ms. Casala.
Good evening, everyone. This is going to be challenging as a heckle.
All right,
good evening.
Every day
Every day is a new day for us.
Some days
Some days are tougher than others.
We always manage to keep out and smooth our way through. As an HR professional, there are some parts of the job that we love, and there's some that we just can't figure out how to do. But the one thing that I think that all HR professionals agree to is employee engagement. And one of those things today is making these milestone celebrations. Tonight we have, we are honoring and acknowledging employees that have all reached the 20-year milestone and those that are retiring from our district. Last year, we don't have to keep revisiting it, but we faced the pandemic. And once the stay-at-home order was put in place, that's exactly what we did, we stayed at home. So we were not able to acknowledge and honor our 20-year employees last year, so we're doing that this year. We don't have them here with us, but many of them are online with us virtually. But we do have a token of appreciation for them from the district that we're gonna make sure that they receive in their building. If you look inside of the Word doc, there's also a program that includes everyone's name, so you'll know who your fellow colleagues and community members are that are celebrating at this time. But I will quickly run through the names. So for our 2019 school year, we have Ruth Ann Anderson, Amy Barger, Mara Bertolino Schmidt, Sharon Farina, Dory De La Cruz, Karen Jenny, Lori Dietrich, Kristen Ellis, Tina Farmer, Jill Feeney, Jeannie Ferris, Carrie Llewellyn, TJ Fontana, Amy Fontana, Sharon Hall Carpenter, Dee Dee Honeyman, Amanda McKay, Debbie Miller, Lois Miller, Dana Rourke, Kathy Smith, Karen Smirth, Vicki Stanton, Alicia Tobin, Marguerite Warren, Dan Weller, and Amanda Zirzo. Can we give them a round of applause? Then this year, those that are celebrating that same 20-year milestone include Lizette Anderson, Amy Barnes, Peggy Berger-Geibel, Carrie Colvin, Kathleen Garcia, Shauna Gotzel Garcia, Jennifer Hilliard, Jamie Jocks, Sean LaPlante, Kendra Lucas, Abigail Madeira, Veronica Maurice, Deanna Meyer, Wes Finita, Scott Shoemaker, Wendy Stannis, and Kelly Thomas. And again, we celebrate them. On behalf of the district, 20 years is a long time to commit yourself. So thank you for everything you've done to help the education of the students of the Cal School District. Now, for the folks that are wrapping up their time in District 428. Retirement is so exciting. I think for the retirees, but also for those of us that are looking at them going out and getting ready to do whatever it is they want to do. So in retirement, we have individuals that have left throughout the school year, and then we have some that will be leaving at the conclusion of this school year. We have a total of 9, and of those 9, 3 are with us this evening. So ladies, we want to line up right over here. For each retiree, we have a special token of appreciation for them. They will receive that. I'll call names, and they can follow through and fist bump, elbow bump, with the board members. And to each of you, thank you for your service. We appreciate everything you've done. Enjoy retirement. Many people are lifelong learners, but I know that each of you are lifelong teachers. So you're teaching and learning for yourself and for others. I know it's nowhere at your end. So congratulations and thank you. We have Andrea Ball, instructional assistant at Huntley. Marianne Wheeler, administrative assistant at the Education Center. Andrea Zanini, bilingual educator at Huntley. Lisa Borschel, coordinator of our EC pre-K at the ELDC. You come on.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
For your help.
I know you're not. No, do it. Love it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up. Okay. Next we have Kelly Meyer, who is certified school nurse course at Clerk. Kateri Shimbley, sorry if I. Thank you. Second grade teacher at Founders. Jackie Schramm, a health assistant at Health High School. Kathleen Smith, ELC teacher. And then Karen Wild, health assistant at Little John. We also have with us this evening Christy Meyer, Director of Student Services, Student Support Services, and Christy retired in December, so she came back this evening to just see her
Good to see you again.
Relax.
So to everyone, again, in our board docs, there is a program, so you can see all of those names and reach out to individuals if you so desire. For some of our retirees, they're with us till, end of school, at least, until June 30th. So there's some celebrations going on, planning happening, so perhaps we'll, be able to convene and see one another in that time. But again, on behalf of the district, thank you so much for all you've done in your service and you being able to, having good people is not always an easy thing to do, but you've done a magical job with that, and have, and continue to do so. Thank you. There is a PowerPoint, sorry about that.
items A through I. Approval of board minutes. Approval-
Yes, I mean, undo, sorry.
Thank you. The second board of education, approval of consent agenda items A through I. Approval of board minutes. Approval of personnel action items. Approval of purchase order requisitions. Approval of salary and benefits for unaffiliated staff. Approval for FTE increase, contractual time for assistant principals at Tyler Brooksville Middle School. Approval of FTE increase DHS second shift custodian. Letter of agreement with CUSD for training of new and transferring employees. Letter of agreement with CUSD for accumulated vacation. Letter of agreement with CUSD for long-term substitute coverage. Is there a motion? Second? Second. Roll call.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next is the proclamation and presentation of award for merit. And the proclamation reads as following. Whereas Attorney Newport has served as a member of the Board of Education since 2017. And Valerie Hernandez and Jeff Colgren have served the board since 2017. Whereas Attorney Newport and Valerie Hernandez and Jeff Colgren were retired from the Board of Education on May 5th, 2021. Whereas Attorney Newport, Valerie Hernandez and Jeff Colgren have been invaluable members of the Board of Education and dedicated servants of the students and staff at Union School District 428. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby expresses its gratitude to Victoria Newport, Valerie Hernandez, and Jeff Holgren for their service on the Board of Education, for their sound advice and valuable input, and for all that they have contributed to the Board of Education and the Town School District. Further resolved, the Board of Education wishes Victoria Newport, Valerie Hernandez, and Jeff Holgren continued success in all of their endeavors, and expresses our hope for their continued health, happiness, and prosperity. With that said, I would like to give you just a small summary of some of the things that this board has been able to accomplish together. And this board moved the Board of Education from May 2019 to May 2021. This board has supported the implementation of our dual language program. We have hired a new superintendent with a 7-0 vote. We have navigated COVID with our entire district. Participated in goal-setting workshops that lay the groundwork for creating a strategic plan for the district, along with the approval of hiring a director of strategic planning and communications. We have restored trust with the unions in the district, successfully negotiating a fair contract with the teachers union and other unions. We have supported the opening of Mentor Academy by renovating Chiefboro Elementary School, which was an unused building, into an therapeutic day school, allowing our students to have services provided in the community, creating an alternative to suspension to further support students. We passed a welcoming proclamation. We solidified the implementation of our gender policy. Through the board-approved multi-year bond restructuring process, the total savings to taxpayers compared to the original debt service structure was $29.9 million. Tax payments dropped for a $150,000 home, market value home, from an estimated average of $601 refunding to $350 refunding, including bond and interest abatements. The board paid down principal to reduce debt and lower interest costs in 2019 by $3 million, utilizing TIP surplus funds, and in 2020 by $10 million using reserves from the working cash fund to pay down bond principal. The Board of Education took the opportunity to utilize property tax relief grant dollars to structure debt for increased principal reduction in early years to reduce interest costs to taxpayers. Permanent reduction of the 2020 operating tax levy, as the Board of Education chose not to increase operating tax levy by applicable CPI of 2.3%, which resulted in a $1.2 million reduction in levy for for 2020 and each year thereafter, plus CPI growth, creating permanent savings to taxpayers. So thank you all. There's 7 of us that have worked together and been able to accomplish in the last 2 years along with the district. And next, so next, first to Victoria. Victoria is the most senior member on the board, serving for 8 years. Thank you for your service, Victoria. Your selfless service to your community. Thank you. Thank you. Next for Jeff. Jeff, thank you for your wonderful service on the board.
Thank you very much.
And thank you thank you for always being willing to bring up questions and for always being willing to work with someone you may not totally agree with. It's my pleasure to come together and work with you.
Likewise.
You know,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And then, last but not least, Valerie Peña Hernandez, who cannot be with us tonight because her mother is sick and she's actually at the hospital taking care of her mom right now. So she can't be here with us, but she is here on the Zoom call. And I just wanted to say to Valerie, Valerie is a fierce and loyal fighter for students, an advocate for justice, and always has her heart in the right direction. And she is a major reason for the changes in our district in a very positive direction. She's laid a lot of foundations for positive changes in leadership and moving forward with, making sure that equity and social justice and all of our students are taken into consideration in everything that we do. So thank you to that. Next, we invite the board members to make remarks. So Victoria, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Because I just want to start with thanking all of you who are in this room tonight. We're here because we have dedicated staff who puts their time into this and just does an incredible job for our students. And I appreciate that so much. I know how often my kids have come home and say something about a teacher that's very positive, and they go talk to different teachers. Just a great staff, and I can't say enough about it. You guys do a great job every day, and I thank you for that. And for the last 8 years, I thank you for all that you've done for our students.
I'm not Mike, so I'm going to depend on Jeremy's mic. Sorry. So thank you so much, everyone. It's been a pleasure working with you. I have the utmost respect for our teachers and our administrators and all our staff, all the people that make this place work. The groundskeepers, everybody, our custodians, everyone puts time and effort into making this place work. So it's been a pleasure to be a part of it, and I'm going to miss that part very much. Can't say enough about the district, can't say enough about the way that we've been working towards the goal of being better every day. So thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate your work from the bottom of my heart.
Val, are you with us?
I'm here. Jeff, I want you to hear me. I'm actually getting emotional that I'm not going to be able to hear you say, I have a question. I might be alone in the room in that regard, but I'm still going to miss that, right, Jeff? I have a question. I love it. So, obviously I'm sitting here in the ICU room with my mother. So, today is an emotional day. And as you guys know, I don't get emotional in terms of crying, right? But Jeff might say that I am quite an emotional woman, because, you know, I have put my passion out there, and it's true. So today, you know, is an exciting day because the new board members get to be seated. And, you know, I want to thank Victoria and Jeff. It's been a pleasure. I know we haven't always agreed. And Jeremy, you know, we haven't always agreed, but in the end, I think what people see in front of the community is not always what happens in closed doors. And I think in the end, we always found commonality. We always worked together, even when we were not okay with what we each were stating. We wanted to get to, you know, to finding common ground for what was best for our children. So I leave knowing that this work that has been started and really is big as board members will always continue no matter what. As the first Hispanic woman, you know, Latina woman to have gotten elected, I carried a pretty significant burden. However, what carried me through that was knowing the staff, like Jeff mentioned, you know, it stems from our admin, down to our teachers, down to our secretaries, our paraprofessionals, our custodial staff, our cafeteria, our bus drivers. Every single one of them make it possible, and in the end, make our job as board members a lot easier, right? I will leave with this closing remark. As a board member, Brene Brown sort of just reminded me today, one of my favorite authors, your life story is your leadership story, right? And as a woman of color, as a woman that has experienced homelessness, as a woman that has experienced sexual abuse, that experienced racism, as a woman that has experienced significant trauma, I can honestly tell you that I leave this board knowing that I advocated each and every day for the most marginalized, and at times maybe highly misunderstood. But in the end, I think that we all found common ground to support all of our students. And I'm very proud, and I feel honored to have worked with all board members. Even at times when it seemed we disagreed, I still felt honored to have, you know, worked with my fellow board members. And I leave here with nothing but respect for every single one of them. And I know we're making history in how as the second Latina woman is elected and the first biracial young, you know, 27-year-old Ariel gets elected. We're making changes in how, and those changes need to continue. And I leave knowing that the work that was perhaps started will always continue, and we will continue to see that change. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you all very much. Thank you all very much. And then we will have the next phase of board member changeover. And this is the official proclamation of the winners of the April 6, 2021 election. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the abstracted votes from the office of the county clerk and declare Freya Harness with 2,534 votes, Ariel Jones with 2,249 votes, and Daisy Ramirez with 2,215 votes, winners of the April 6, 2021 election. Roll call. Oh, sorry, motion.
So moved.
Roll call.
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Sharon Wilson,
Yes.
Valerie Hernandez,
Yes.
David Seymour,
Yes.
Jeff Alder,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid.
Yes.
Okay, and then you go ahead and step forward to board members.
Yeah, grab the form.
All right, you're gonna go ahead and raise your right hand. solemnly swear that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 428 in accordance with the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and the laws of the State of Illinois, to the best of my ability.
That I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Community Unit District 428 in accordance with the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and the laws of the State of Illinois, to the best of my ability.
I further swear that
I
I shall respect taxpayer interests by serving as faithful protector of the school district's assets.
I shall respect taxpayer interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district's assets.
I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board while respecting the privacy of students and employees.
I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board while respecting the privacy of students and employees.
I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual and that the decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting.
I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting.
I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels.
I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels.
As a part of the Board of Education, I shall accept the responsibility for my role in the equitable and quality education of every student in the school district.
As a part of the Board of Education, I shall accept the responsibility for my role in the equitable and quality education of every student in the school district.
I shall foster with the board extensive participation of the community, formulate goals, define outcomes, and set the course for Community Unit School District 428.
I shall foster with the board extensive participation of the community, formulate goals, define outcomes, and set the course for Community Unity School District 428.
I shall assist in establishing a structure and an environment designed to ensure all students have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework.
I shall assist in establishing a structure and an environment designed to ensure all students have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework.
I shall strive to ensure continuous assessment of student achievement in all conditions affecting the education of our children in compliance with state law.
I shall strive to ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement in all conditions affecting the education of our children in compliance with state law.
I shall serve as education's key advocate on behalf of students in our community school or schools and advance the vision of the Community Unit School District 428.
I shall serve as an education's key advocate on behalf of students in our community schools or schools to advance the vision for Community Unit School District 428.
And I shall strive to work together with the district superintendent to lead the school district forward, fulfilling the vision the board has created, fostering excellence for every student in the areas of academic skill, knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
I shall strive to work together with the district superintendent to lead the school district towards fulfilling the vision of the board has created, fostering excellence for every student in areas of academic excellence, knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
And then we'll go ahead and make a seat and then adjourn from back. Okay, so. So we can have our retiring board members go ahead and stand. And thank you for your service.
Thank you so much.
And then we'll have our new board members go ahead and speak to the board.
They do have to team die. They haven't turned yet. They have to vote.
Oh, wait, sorry.
Yeah, they have to do a roll call. Don't go away, Doug. You have to adjourn the team die. Which means you just.
Okay, so I'm ready, okay. It is recommended that the Board of Education adjourn team die. Is there a motion?
Second.
Roll call. Victoria Newport? Yes. Jeremy Wilson?
Yes.
Valerie Taylor Davis?
Yes.
David Seymour?
Yes.
Jeff Logan?
Yes.
Samantha Davis?
Yes.
Sarah Moses? Yes. Okay, now, we go ahead.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you. Thank you, Laurie. Bye, everyone. Thank you, Laurie. Thank you, Laurie.
And then the board members can go ahead and stay.
We have some temporary name tags.
It is recommended that the Board of Education appoint interim superintendent Dr. Powell as president pro tempore.
This is the most power I'll ever have. At this point, I'm looking for nominations for. You don't vote. This is a takeover. Only for a few seconds.
Thank you. Yes. Okay, so it is recommended that the Board of Education appoint interim superintendent Dr. Powell as president pro tempore.
Unless there's any objections, the first bit of business is that I need a nomination for the president of the Board of Education for that position.
I would like to nominate Sarah Moses.
Any other nominations? With that, there has to be a roll call vote for the appointment of Sarah Moses as the president of the board. Pardon me? No, it's a nomination. We have to vote on the nomination.
Daisy Ramirez?
Yes.
Samantha Davis?
Yes.
Sarah Moses? Yes. Amanda Myers?
Yes.
Jeremy Wilson? Ariella? Yes.
Yes, 9:50.
Next is nominations are now in order for the office of vice president. I nominate J.C. Ramirez. J.C. Ramirez is nominated. Are there any other nominations for office of vice president?
I'd like to nominate Amanda Harris.
Amanda Harness has been nominated. Are there any other nominations for vice president? Okay, so the nominations are closed. Then we'll do a roll call. Shannon, can you please call the roll for the voting of office of vice president? Each member should respond by saying the name of who they are voting for. Daisy Ramirez? Daisy Ramirez. Samantha Davis?
Daisy Ramirez.
Sarah Moses? Daisy Ramirez? Amanda Harness?
Amanda Harness.
Jeremy Wilson?
Amanda Harris.
Ariel Owens?
Daisy Ramirez.
David Seymour? So with that, Daisy Ramirez is elected as vice president. Congratulations. Secretary, nominations are now in order for the office of the secretary. I nominate Samantha McDavid. Are there any other nominations for the office of secretary? If there are no further nominations, the nomination for the office of secretary is closed. Then we will go ahead and take a roll call vote to elect Samantha McDavid.
Yes.
Sarah Moses? Yes. Amanda Harris? Yes. Jeremy Wilson?
Yes.
Ariel Owens?
Yes.
David Seymour?
Yes.
Casey Ramirez.
Yes.
Okay, with that, Samantha McDavid is elected as Secretary of the School Board. Congratulations. Next is the appointment of Board Clerk. It is recommended that the Board of Education appoint Shannon Whitaker as the Board Clerk of the Board of Education. Roll call. I'm sorry, motion?
Just roll call.
Just, okay, roll call. Sarah Moses? Yes. Amanda White?
Yes.
Gary Gilpin?
Same.
Ariel Owens? Yes. David Seymour?
Yes.
Casey Ramirez?
Yes.
Samantha McDavid?
Yes.
Shannon Whitaker is voted as the Board Clerk. Thank you, Shannon. Appointment of Board Treasurer. It is recommended the Board of Education appoint Cynthia Carpenter as the Treasurer of the Board of Education. Roll call. Amanda White?
Yes.
Gary Gilpin?
Yes.
Ariel Owens? Yes. David Seymour?
Yes.
Casey Ramirez?
Yes.
Samantha McDavid?
Yes.
Sarah Moses? Yes. Cynthia Carpenter is the Board Treasurer. Thank you, Cynthia. Next is new business administration. Item A is approval of board meeting dates, times for the remainder of the 2021 school year. Mr. Goodpowell.
And the first business of a new board is to agree upon the dates that you'll be meeting, at least for the remainder of this school year through June 30th. And we are recommending you stay with the first and third Tuesday of each month, right through June 30th. And this would take action because right now, the new board has to agree upon that, so they need a motion for that.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call. Gary Gilpin?
Yes.
Ariel Owens?
Yes.
David Seymour?
Yes.
Casey Ramirez?
Yes.
Samantha McDavid?
Yes.
Sarah Moses? Yes. Ariel, sorry, Amanda White?
Yes.
Okay, next is the Board of Education meeting scheduled for the 21-22 school year. Mr. Powell.
Yeah, we're not asking for action here, but if you look ahead to the coming school year, we recommend, last year, we only had one meeting in November because of the election day. So we have no election day this year, so we're recommending November stays with the first and third, but in December, rather than having it early and right before the holiday, we're recommending we only have one meeting in December, which I think you'll all be very happy to do when it comes to December, and that's on the 14th of December. And similar to last year, rather than coming back right after break and having a board meeting, we recommend you have the board meeting on January 18th, 2022, and that's very similar to what we did this year. I think that, and I've already talked to Cindy Carpenter regarding the tax levy. That would be no problem in terms of setting up the tax levy, especially if you have two meetings in November for the preliminary discussion of that. So there's no discussion, or there's no action, but if there's anybody who would like to recommend any changes, this is their time. This is the time, because we'll bring it back in May 18th for action, so you can.
Sure. Does anybody have any discussion? We'll bring it back. Okay,
That's convenient for everybody.
sounds good. All right, next is the information review of the consolidated district plan. Really loud.
Before Kim gets started, the consolidated plan was put in place in order to receive federal grants several years ago. It's a template that's put out by the federal government in order to be awarded grants, federal grants. The consolidated plan has to be in place. You received a copy of it, and Kim is there to give you a little bit of a background on that. Most districts do not discuss consolidated plans, they simply, it would be a consent agenda item. Probably last year it was, but I thought with the new board members here, Kim could give a little bit of an overview of what that's about. So, thank you, Kim.
Thank you. First, I want to introduce that the consolidated plan is written by a team of people and a team of departments. So, and we have some on the screen tonight, and then we have everybody else here. So Amy Crook, our bilingual programs coordinator, is a part of this. Sarah Montgomery, our secondary coordinator. Billy Lermo is elementary coordinator. And then Dr. Amy Luffner, she is our assessment research and MTSS coordinator. She's on the movie. Lisa Gorshall, she met earlier, who's retiring. She's our ELDC director and coordinator. And then, of course, Kyle Gerdes is just the director of student services. So it's a team of us that sit down. It's 28 or 29 pages in there, and I would not take you through all that. It would take forever. It is kind of a rubber stamp type of thing we have to do. In essence, what it will do, we have it board approved. We have to get some documents from all the private schools that participate in our grants. We all upload that May 18th after you vote on it, and then it opens up 13 different grants for us, which I have listed on that first, well, wait, I'm jumping pages. And that's what will happen, and they will open up, and then we will start working on the budgets and all of the pieces that go to that. So that's what we pretty much do in May and June. So what it does, the whole consolidated grant, it gives us an opportunity to support kids holistically. So you'll see in the questions and things that we answer, it goes from social emotional to academics. It covers everything, homelessness. It's 29 different pages of all different things. Single plan, so that's what's nice. Before, like Rick said, we had to write one for every single grant. Now this puts everything together, and we love the fact that it's like an umbrella, so we can make sure in all of our grants, we are covering all our bases. So that gives us the district collaboration across all our departments, opportunities to talk to stakeholders, multiple funding sources are involved, and then we coordinate with the local and state funds to kind of prioritize our state needs. And in the 29 pages, you'll see that there's an ISDE goal. There's 3 goals every time that we have to select 1, 2, or all of them and say how we're going to address those goals. So that's all preset by them. So these are all the, I didn't bring up the presentation, did I? Sorry. So these are all the different grants. Title I, which is our largest grant, is right now, I think we ended the year at 1.9 million. And then Title I Part A is the funding grant that covers all of the schools that were designated over the last 3 years. We have Title II Part A, we have Title III, and that's what Amy Cook coordinates with. We have Title IV. That one is a very unique one that we started getting a couple of years ago. That one does certain things like we put in for band instruments, cover AP testing costs, all different things like that that would benefit our kids. And then IDEA, which is commonly known as our special ed grant, also funds, Kyle can probably explain that better than me, and then also has the preschool grants in there. So those are the ones that will all open up once we submit this proposal to them. What to expect on there, that's the next page, and I just did. These are all the different headings you find in the second document with all of information, and I also linked it in there too, so you can get there quicker. But we go through all of these. Coordinated aligned funding, we talked about how we're doing that. Our needs assessment, stakeholders that are involved in the proposal. We have to that any student that lives in DeKalb that goes to a private school anywhere is entitled to funding for their school. The school has to agree. We send letters every spring, and then so this year we had 3 private schools that participated. Sometimes I've had 4, 1 in Rockford if we have a student there. It's up to that building. Then Sarah and Billy meet with them several times during the year because we have to make sure they're spending the money appropriately. All the equipment that they buy is still DeKalb School District, so they have it, but if something happened and they don't need it, we come back to our district. So that consultation has to happen. The preschool coordination is in there, student achievement, college career readiness plan, support the teacher's professional development has to be listed. Then we have to have things in there about safe and healthy learning environments, how we plan to support academics, and then foster care, and what our involvement is with that. So those are all like the subheadings of those 29 different pages. And so what it's not is it's not a grant application. Again, it's just a step that we have to take. It's not a guarantee that we will get federal funds. We have never, in my history, never not gotten them, but it's not a guarantee. It's not a tool that we report out on. We have reports that are due throughout the year showing our spending. Those are different types of things. It's not for documenting use of the local state funds. We don't do that either after this is turned in. And then not a report of required federal or state services. So what questions would you have for me or the team? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Kim, before you go, can I ask one question? Sorry.
Yep.
So we receive money on all of those grants that we listed. There's not one that we're missing out.
No, we've gone, well, there are some, no, every grant, to be honest, Cindy will say there's another grant coming, I'm like, oh goodness, but it's great. It's great. There's other grants that are not, that don't fall under this that we also have to manage as well. Like right now, we have a CTE, or what's that called? Innovation grant.
Innovation grant.
Yeah. So there are some other grants that we have, they just don't fall under this specific one. But we have never not taken money. We'll spend it. We'll come up with, we have plenty of ways to do that. But what we really, I think, I'm proud of in our department is many years ago was more focused on one area of the district. We are really trying to support everything. Like I mentioned, from music instruments to AP classes to all different types of things to cover all of our students at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have check by report with Ms. Sweet and Ms. Freshwater.
Before doing any grant for starting, the Board of Education and ECTA, the last negotiation, created a class size committee to address a number of issues related to class size. We've been working all year. According to the agreement with the union, this class size committee is required to make a report before June 2021. So this is the report that was required, and this is the status of our class size issues as of today. With that, Tina Brandt, you want to take over?
Sure. Thank you. Good evening. I'm Dina Sweet. I currently teach at Rosette 8th grade, language arts. Thank you for having us. And yes, we are part of the class size task force. We have been meeting actually for the last 2 years with this memorandum of understanding through negotiation. So really, we just want to preface with these are just simply our recommendations and just for ideas and for you all to explore, ideas for exploration. So our recommendations and just some tentative timelines that we are looking at are as follows. We're looking at possible remote learning academy that would be starting even as soon as fall 2021. And then currently maintaining our what we have as thresholds for class sizes right now, which are at the K-5 level are 28 per classroom, and at the 6-12 level are 35. And recently you guys have approved quite a few different FTEs as far as social work, psychs, and that kind of thing for areas, and Kyle can speak to that as far as our caseloads for special education and things. Those have also increased over the years. And so we want to make sure that those also stay down as well. Because in addition to our class sizes, our caseloads are also just as, are increasing as well.
Just to chime in, but I was gonna ask, what was the goal like? I can't remember what the classroom size was for those two classes.
So the reduction, if you look, actually is, yeah, is to eventually lower class sizes down to, we're looking for our goal is to get K2 primary down to 22, 3-5 to 25, and then our 6 through 12 around 30. So that's our ultimate goal. And we're looking at, you know, hopefully sooner would be best, but we would look at summer of 2022.
I think just to piggyback on what I'm Brandon Boyer, principal at Rosette, I think just to piggyback a little bit on, is to look even those case codes for our special needs and our special ed teachers is also our student sport teams. So as those numbers increase for them also, looking at those FTEs, and they all kind of go in with each other. To step back, I think the important thing right now to look at is that remote learning academy or remote learning option, as you know we have this year. As most some people may know, some of that, the state of Illinois is requiring that as of now. I believe, correct me if not, in all my reading, June is supposed to be, we're hoping for some guidance, I think, to whether that will be extended into next year or not.
You're right, we're looking for revised guidance by really start.
Yep.
Before the mid-stage.
Sometime, hopefully in the near future, not just in June, hopefully before that time.
In weeks.
Yep, to help guide us in for the fall, so we can be proactive to this and not, reactive to it, and have things kind of set to go. And this also will also feedback to help our class sizes if there's something with those requirements that we can do. Because we know when I look at remote learning, we look at, I think from even this year, and look at how remote learning was for some. There are some people that thrive, a percentage of students, right? There are some students. I think a big thing for that we hear a lot of as an administrator, that I hear a lot of, is that parallel teaching part, and how incredibly difficult that is now and has been for our teachers. So looking at that would help alleviate that issue going into the fall if those requirements were still there.
But the making of public, parallel teaching, to clarify, so.
So
parallel teaching, go ahead, teacher.
Yeah. It's really important.
It is very important.
Parallel teaching is when basically you have students in your classroom and you have students online at the same time. Very difficult to manage both. It just is difficult. That's all there is to it. Yeah. So then we're also looking at a third recommendation is we had a demographic study done in 2017. It is linked in your resources there, but just to review that and see if there's any further steps that need to be warranted and if an update needs to be done for that as well. And then obviously to look at our facilities and our additional space needs, which we know we're just kind of busting at the seams. And so an architect and some of our long-term goals, especially for our elementary and our one of our middle schools, but really both our middle schools eventually. Looking at some utilization strategies for the high school, so where the teachers move more so than the students, and possibly a referendum, but maybe even utilizing and asking our resources now for Facebook and what those bigger companies that are coming in to town and reaching out to them to see what they can provide or ask. So just kind of those are our goals, and then again, like you said, lowering those thresholds in the end as the facilities and our budgets will allow us. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Again, we have the resources linked, so when you want to dive in more so, you can, but that's kind of the overview, because again, we just wanted to just, this is informational and for you guys to explore. We can't do anything until we get to go ahead from you guys.
So our goal would be to explore this more and be able to open some of these things.
So this fall offering of remote learning, would that be in your mind, a volunteer type event, or would there be qualifications students would have to meet from this semester, let's say, in order to qualify to be able to do all remote?
So that's, a very good question. And that's what we really need an answer from the state. So, let's say they do say that we need to provide a remote option, but only for students that are at risk or family members that are at risk. It would be a great year to offer that for those students. They would not be in a regular classroom any longer like they're doing now. They would be in a remote classroom by semester. We could do it by semester. And we could explore this next year, a couple of different programs for maybe our middle school or high school, that online programs, to see which one would be a really good fit for the fall of 2022. While we could offer K-5, we could still do the model we have. We would have to have a teacher, an additional teacher, be a kindergarten teacher, a first grade teacher, second grade teacher, and have them fully remote. They might be on all day. It'd be a totally different thing to explain to families. You're not going to have a classroom that you get to come back and forth to. That is your classroom. But I think for our K-5, we feel it really needs to be a direct teaching like we've been doing this year. And when you parallel teach, you're now trying, it's very difficult on the teachers, but the students are also suffering too, because while some are on there, I've got to go help the others in here, so they got to wait for me to come back, and you can just give them your undivided attention. And then if we decide to purchase an online program that we have suggested, or we already have one actually at the high school called Edgenuity, we would like to have, I don't know what we would call them, but, education managers that would meet with those kids, make sure they're following their coursework, that they're struggling with their coursework. Maybe they do come into some place for, an hour or two a week to get extra help. But they would have a consultant to work with. Somebody has got to work with them to do that. Because some of that stuff is not as easy to follow through. And also check on them, because they're still our students. And then see how that goes. And then we could offer a academy that they were talking about as an option for students that learn better that way.
I guess, one of the things I'm just putting out there, I'm sure you've already seen this times over this year, but my biggest concern is simply assessments and making sure that kids are taking tests by themselves and without help and all those things, because I've heard a number of kids tell me personally it's so much easier to cheat when you study remotely. They don't want to go back to school. So those are horrible things to hear when you're on school.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, if you go with a program like we have with Edgenuity, those assessments are taken individually. You would not have the same assessment that I'm going to have, so there would be no way for us to be, like the traditional, like an assessment we have now. So, yeah.
I'm just sharing some unwanted feedback.
Sure.
Honestly, I don't want to hear that either. I'm just saying, like, maybe if you do that, at least they show up here and not get designated classroom just to do their assessments real time.
And I think it's great to have all of those questions and to start forming those, if you get to go ahead to say, here's all our questions, let's hammer all of those out so that those issues are taken care of, so that we can make sure that everything,
Yeah, as long as the education's happening,
Right,
it's all good ideas.
Right.
yeah.
It'd be a great way to put that critical reading forward, work directly at them over and play those questions. Very interesting.
I've got a question. Jeremy's question kind of sparks for me this. Is this something that we may be needing to look into for a more long-term option? Is remote education something that may become a part of our reality?
I think it may be.
I mean, in a more permanent basis.
Right, past, post-pandemic, right?
Not in response.
Exactly, yeah. Could it be to a certain, I mean, as much as we researched and looked around, yeah, I mean, are there certain SEL needs that can be met by a kid, you know, that may have, just a perfect example, like, just extreme anxiety or school refusal or something like that. It might be a small population of kids that could thrive.
There's a district just east of us that actually put the criteria before any of these regulations have come into play. These are the criteria that they've already put out to the public. Students with underlying medical conditions or students who live with family members who are at increased risk for severe illness, students who exhibit school refusal, as Brad just mentioned, and students who have thrived using the model that's exhibited by attendance, academic growth data, and grades. And if we had 20% in that remote group, and you have a class of 30, now you have a class of 24. That's how it affects class size. And that's why this committee focused on that as a potential something to explore. If the board is not interested, with a lot of work involved here, there's no reason to us to move forward. So we're going to come back and discuss this in 2 weeks on the 18th and have a more thorough discussion. But to me, I think David I think long-term, this may be part of the future of education and a remnant of the pandemic that we might be living with the future.
I have maybe touched on this when I missed it, but, so I'm hearing you're saying continuity would be what we would do, but would we not have anything, like, we would be hiring teachers to be having that, we would have, well, like, we're doing.
Yeah, we have,
Complete remote model where we've got teachers in that kind of room.
it would be really hard, when you start getting middle and high school, to have a teacher that's available to teach chemistry and a teacher that's available to, you would have to have a lot of teachers for a small group of students. That would make it difficult. But I think there are some, I was talking with one of the art teachers here, but again, I guess it depends on what we're doing. If we're trying to lower class size, you can't pull any of the teachers we currently have, or we're not solving the problem. If we are just talking about responding to our remote learning needs next year, not talking about class size, then I think there are some options. But again, it just depends on the number of students too, that are participating in it. Because again, there's offerings at the high school here that, yes, they have some of those in an online program, but they're not the same as when you take it here, or even if you get a teacher parallel teaching with you. But it would be really hard to staff that when there's so many different classes. We don't even have that.
I think it would probably be a hybrid. K-5 would look different than 6-12.
Right. But I think there's things to explore, like what you were saying. And that's why I think next year would be a great year for us to be doing that, exploring and trying what could we do. Could somebody teach an art section instead of the class period? That's possible. I don't know.
And some of this would be open to negotiation with DCTA.
Yeah.
It's their work that we need to work with them on.
Yep.
I can see 6A even working, middle school even working.
May I ask a question? And I think we touched on this a little bit, but, and I am no way against this, looking into this and exploring it more. I am concerned though with, during COVID, we have seen a lot less, cases being reported to DCFS, and so like under-reporting potentially because students are not in front of the adults that see them every day. In the SEL concern, and I know that we would have specific criteria for students to be able to do this, but, and I don't know if you can chime in, Kyle, are there ideas for how we can still support students socially and emotionally, and making sure that they are developing social skills and the soft skills that we need, those interpersonal skills, to be able to be successful after school?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's been one of the things that's been running through my mind as we discuss this is, we've had to really pivot this year to try and meet our students' social emotional needs, and our clinicians and teachers and school resource officers, principals have done a really good job with that. And we know we've been able to support some students, but then there are students we know that we haven't been able to reach. And so I do think that as we move forward and we explore this, we have to look at how we can still support the social emotional needs. Not just the academic piece of it, but the whole child. And the other thing that we need to look into is how we're going to provide accommodation and modifications for students that have individualized education plans. That has been part of the remote learning that has been really difficult for us to pivot, while still trying to follow the federal guidance, that really hasn't been laxed. So those are the questions that, should we explore this a little bit further, we're gonna have to really dig into and figure out how feasible it is, and if we're gonna be able to meet those students' needs.
I would also suggest maybe if we go on to explore this further, working with the ROE and because of truancy and how this potentially could affect chronic absenteeism or truancy numbers and how we can build in prevention into if this is an option.
And I do think we have to have checkpoints too, because if a student is not being successful remotely, then we have to meet that family and say, we need them here.
Right.
And that's our number one push, we need to get back at first period, but yes, I agree.
When I would be concerned with how we can potentially allow families to choose this as an option and then make them come back in person if they aren't meeting, the goals that we set for achievement or, if they're not being successful.
We'll be back there on May 18th. Continue this discussion.
This is really exciting to see where we're coming out of this task force. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dina. Thank you, Brandon. Good job.
Next is unbilled vehicles for driver's education.
This is all good news, by the way. This is the softball on the agenda here.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. For the new members, my name is James Horn, I'm the high school principal. I'm here this evening with an opportunity that's been presented to us by Commonwealth Edison in the form of a $50,000 grant that we can utilize to purchase an electronic vehicle as well as a docking station for the charging electronic vehicle to supplement the driver's education vehicles. So the information is linked in there, the terms and condition of the $50,000 grant. We do believe that we're going to be able to purchase the electronic car as well as the docking station. I just need the vote for us to go ahead and move forward with this.
Second.
Roll call. Keith Rivera. Yes. Nick Davis.
Yes.
Sarah Moser. Yes. Amanda Barnett. Yes. Gary Olson.
Yes.
Ariella Lynch. Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you all so much.
Yes, thank you. Next is the elementary math adoption. Mr. Williams and Mr. Moore.
Good evening, everyone. Mine isn't going to be as quick as James, but I'll try to do. So as Kim mentioned earlier, I'm Billy Whittemore, I'm the elementary curriculum coordinator. And the reason I'm here today is because we are looking at the elementary level to adopt a new math curriculum. So just to give you a little bit of history, I actually came to the role new this year, and our MyMath, our curriculum that we're looking to replace, actually expired in May of 2020. So the pandemic hit, and once that contract expired, instead of adopting a new math program with not having much research and being able to pilot it, we decided to continue with our MyMath for one more year. This school year, I got a team of our math committee members. We had teachers who piloted, including some of those math committee members. And we really did our research on what we wanted. So we actually piloted 2 programs, because that's what we came to a consensus to, is those 2 programs. And we ended up adopting Envision. What I want you to know, though, before I start talking about Envision a little bit, is we brought you some data, just so you can see our current math program and how it's not making the gains that we want. So if you look at the top left there, we have second grade math scores from winter 2016 all the way to winter 2020. So you can see there, our trend line, we actually do have a positive trend line, but we're not making the growth we want. And you see that dotted black line at the top, those are national norms. So compared to national norms, although it looks like a huge gap, when you actually look at the difference of grid scores, it looks a lot worse than what it is, just because of the scale. But we're still not making the gains that we would like. So if you look at second, third, fourth grade, we all have a positive trend line. But then you look at fifth grade, and ironically, that's our grade level that started with mine. So that actually has a negative. So then we decided to move forward with requesting the adoption of Envision Math. So for Envision Math, it's got three main components, which are the conceptual understanding, the assessment and differentiation, and the teacher support. So the conceptual understanding is where the students actually start out with problem-based learning experience. So this is where they're exploring numbers and strategies, they're collaborating, they're engaged with one another, to uncover different ways to figure out math. Because you all know that you can come up with the same answers different ways. So we really give them that experience, and then they have those visual representations available to them as well. And then our second component is assessment and differentiation. I heard Jeremy say a little bit earlier about assessment. How do we know where our kids are at? We need to assess them, right? And once we find out where they're at, we need to differentiate. We need to meet them at their level and really teach them those strategies that they are either lacking or even enrichment. Because I think we talk a lot about how our students that struggle with math or with reading, but then a lot of times we forget about the enrichment. And this actually supports enrichment and it gives us an intervention. So then, continued on that, it focuses on those specific skills like I said for struggling students and that enrichment, like I was saying. And in there's a component that's called additional three-act modeling. Those are videos that allow students to see the actual math that they're learning in real-life scenarios. So they're able to connect with the math that they're learning. And then the third component is teacher support. So easy digital access. This is, and I'm probably going to say it wrong then, but we're, as District 428, we're like a Google district, I guess, maybe or something.
We're Google referenced it.
So the little waffle that you see when you log in at the very top right, I don't see it there, but when you go to Google, you click on it, there's a little realize icon, and that's already embedded within Google with Envision. So it's going to be very easy for our teachers to access that. One cool thing that supports teachers as well is that they can have their students get on, if they're going to do additional practice or homework, they can have them get on it just like you do with the Google Doc and you're able to work offline. You can go home, work offline if you don't have internet, come back. When you get back online, it syncs back into their whatever they're going to upload for their assignment. So that's pretty cool as well. It also has videos for teachers that might not feel as confident in math. And I bring that up because elementary is a total different world where you have to be, I don't want to say an expert, but you have to be good at, I don't want to say expert, an expert in the content area that you teach. And those content areas are social studies, language arts, math, science, social emotional learning. So a whole lot of components. So if math is not your strength, you always have these resources to go there. So then that was the component, that was the envision, that was the curriculum. Now you all know that, or I hope you know that, we have these ESSER monies that are going to help us with helping us with students that had learning loss due to COVID. So we are asking for additional resources to go along, additional resources to go along with a vision. And one of those is success. So Success Maker really focuses on the student's strengths and weaknesses. And it's research-based, and if you use it 2 to 3 days a week for 15, 20 minutes, and we do at the elementary, we do guided math. So if you put that as a guided math station for 2 to 3 days a week, then you should see substantial growth within those students. We had actually our special ed teachers piloted this, a couple special ed teachers piloted this, and they loved it. But it's also meant for, like I said, enrichment. And right there at the very bottom, you can see it's aligned to WIDA and our SciUp framework. So WIDA, and Amy can explain it, was WIDA Consortium, but SciUp is the Sheltered Instructional Observation Protocol, right? To help support our efforts. And then the other additional component that we're asking for is that MSDA, the Mastery Diagnostic Assessment. So how are we going to know that this is really working? By giving them an initial screener and then giving them assessments that are at their abilities to be able to show that so that they can show us they're making growth, but they're still struggling with a specific skill in math. So based off that, there's an adaptive diagnostic, which is work that's given to them so that they strengthen those skills that they may not necessarily be, that they're struggling with, or just something that they need more attention. So then it also gives us instructional recommendations with that. So I'm not sure if you all are familiar with 4-5, but 4-5 is a language arts program that we use, and it gives us recommendations of what we can use to strengthen our students' weaknesses, and that's what MSD does as well. And I just had to throw in there the assessments are unbiased, equitable, and based on research. So then, this is kind of the the kind of the punching gut. Go ahead.
So before we get into the money, I agree to the money, I assume. I don't want to interrupt. Okay, so my question is, I get this has a lot of cool features. I guess my question is, if you have to say, okay, I don't know any of the features of the old system, to be honest. Okay, so maybe if you could do a quick compare and contrast in terms of why is this one so much better. It sounds like these are great, so it sounds like maybe a lot of the stuff they don't already have, but it would be helpful just to sort of pinpoint.
So, because that's what when I came in as elementary coordinator, they had already adopted my math. And in fact, 6 years ago, everybody was stamping Common Core on everything, but nothing, this wasn't there. Well, half of the program we had now is they promised a phenomenal digital version for kids. It wasn't phenomenal. For the teachers, it wasn't phenomenal. And the company was no longer putting money into keeping that program up and running nicely because they could already involved in other products, and that's where they were putting all their money. So teachers were so frustrated, we didn't even purchase the students' online version this year because students weren't getting anything out of it. And that's always been a concern for us because all their assessments are done on computers. They need to learn how to do math on a computer at times, or certain pieces of that. And then it was also really lacking in the problem solving. It doesn't have an adaptive thing where, Billy can go on and I can go on and what he needs, he'll work on that at his steps, and I'll work on what I need. The program we have now, everybody works on the same thing, except the teachers have differentiated by doing for math. So, and this company is called Sabas now, but it was Pearson. So this company has a lot of things to offer, and they follow through. That's another
Have they
problem.
given you assurances this product's going to stay supported for any period of time?
So, yes, because what's the name of the research place? If there's been a lot of research done on this program, Ed reports.
Oh, sorry. No, I know you.
Ed reports has ranked this one really high, and that's what we rely on too, so they do a lot of research about it. And interestingly, my math that we currently have was up higher, and now they've ranked it extremely low. So, yeah, and when you renew, just to renew my math this year was $100,000, and it was really hard to swallow that pill to buy a program that is not doing what we need to do. So,
Sure, so we'll go ahead and get the cost. So I know when you see $449,610, it sounds like a lot. We're asking for it for 6 years. We get the manuals, the teacher's manuals, the student workbooks, the online access, and additional practice workbooks. But when you divide that by 330-ish thousand, 3,330 students, roughly, it's $22. And that's what we are asking the district for. Everything else, our professional development, we obviously need, we can't just throw our teachers into a new curriculum and not give them any professional development. So for 1 year of professional development, which is very expensive, we are going to fund that, our funding source would be $2, but that would be $58,800. Success maker for 6 years, including PD, for the first year, would be $221,136. But it's $11 per year when you divide it out. And then the MFDA is $100,000. It ends up being that for 6 years as well. And that ends up being $5 per student. So everything we're looking to fund with ESSER 2 grant money, except for the curriculum.
So what is the fair amount going at? We must have annual fees, I think you just said $100,000 annual fee, is that for a year, for 2 years? What's the?
1 year. Really, we were paying for the online access to the teachers because, and then we paid, it was close to 300, close to 400,000 for the program we have currently. And then we just paid another 100,000 for it. So actually, when we look at the cost of this program, it's around the same thing that we paid about 6 years ago.
And then my last question is, knowing that we just elected a new superintendent, I don't know if she has any strong opinions on curriculum, but this is something that. Oh, you did? Okay. This sounds wonderful.
Just to end with this, we really did look at the money and what it would cost the district. And we looked at 4, 5, 6 year plans, because you need to implement a program for 3 to 4 years at least, right, to see if it really works. So a 4-year plan would be per year, $177,878 per year. For a 5-year program, it'd be $160,838 per year. And then our 6 years, $138,477. So we actually saved quite a bit of money by doing this long term.
I have a question. When FTE requests came to us earlier this year, there were several requests for elementary math interventions. And that was not something that we were able to do. However, you stand by this curriculum and with the tools that it provides and integration that it gives into the Google Classroom, the Google stuff that we use. Very sorry, you would say that this is going to help support our teachers to really drive student achievement in that.
Yes, however, I'll add to it. It would have been great to have a math person, a math teacher on special assignment, so that that person could dedicate themselves to the implementation of this program. And I know you all have to think very hard on FTE, but that would have greatly helped us roll this out so that that person could be the expert in it and help us roll it out for a lot of students.
You can tell he's going to bring that back again each year.
I'm sorry, and I think they're doing a great job trying to explain it. But I just wanted to remember that although this is the data that we want to use as a standard for instruction, with all the professional development and the screener, it allows us to be able to identify where students need to be differentiated at. So that differentiation will allow us to connect to MTSS. So this gives us the data that we need to be able to make sure that we're supporting students where they are. So I just want to remind everybody that, as the board has put it to me, I need to make sure that everything that gets passed through does connect to MTSS. So explaining how that works and why it's needed, what this does for us is gives us the data and the material. So the number one, students can be screened. Number two, we have a standard tier one instruction. And then number three, that students have access to an opportunity for them to gain additional skills on their own or as part of a small group or teacher-led. So this is what that program allows us to do. Does that help?
That helps me a lot.
Okay, great, thank you. Excellent, thank you.
And we will still continue our math assessment, but what's hard for our teachers is math assessment doesn't match up with the program we have. So you have to find the standard the student did do well on, then you have to go back to the current math program and dig for it. Where when the kids take this screener, it'll all tell you this child needs help here and we can jump in the program. The other thing I like about it is that our special ed teachers can also still use this program. We don't have to buy another program for our students because it has so much differentiation and that will help them use it. And they piloted, some of them did, and we're saying it's just phenomenal what they can do. So that's a big selling.
All right, so this is kind of back to that comparison. So, 2017, somebody came before the board and said, hey, you got that math program, that's gonna be great. Here we are 6 years later, we recognize this in whole. With this presentation at the beginning of the new 6 years, are there any holes that we can anticipate now that we can adjust for within these 6 years, that 6 years from now, when the newest and greatest math program is available, we're getting the best out of this one?
Well, I agree. And I think after a year, what happened to the other program, the same thing will happen with this. 1 year of implementation, the teachers will come here. I just want you to hear. And when we had my math, after a year, we knew there were some holes in there, and we started going back in there and plugging in those holes. What happened though, as the course of time, the company normally would help you with that. They would be changing the program. They stopped working on that program. Where Pearson, Boston, we have other math programs that are in the high school. I don't know why.
Oh.
As Kim shared that, I'm gonna go and maybe this is a good time to sit down. This is research on the programming. And then we will, so there should be moving this forward.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So, the question was really good about what we're gonna do. He's gonna be watching us like a hawk. And if we see the deficits after the teachers go through it for 1 year, we have to plug those holes. And that's exactly what we're going to do. And then this company's been around a long time. And the other products that we have used of this, they're updating the online thing every year. The workbooks that come every year will be a change because they found things that weren't working and they've added other things. So that's the nice thing. The old days, you had to buy the product and you're stuck with exactly that product for 6 to 7 years. So that's another plus to it as well. And our kids are hurting a little bit in math this year based on the data we collected because we haven't been able to be as much in person. So we know we have to really dive in strong with all that too.
And that's across the nation.
Yeah.
So that packet I gave you just research on vision and success maker. And the very last page is actually a survey that I gave the math committee and the piloters so that we can decide which two of the programs, which of the two, which was going to be.
I just want to say thank you. This was an extremely thorough presentation. I love the metrics you showed right out of the gate. That's really helpful for us. I think you probably noticed already that sports pretty minimal spending money in mixing expenses. Why waste money on something that's clearly not? So nice job on that.
And the team last spring, we looked at 5 or 6 programs. We were looking last year and narrowed it down to 3. Then when Billy came, they narrowed it down to 2. So we did start looking at all last school year as well. So we got this. So yes, I think I understand this.
Any other questions? Thank you. Next is
Good evening, I just wanted to come forth and present an option for bidding out HVAC projects for next summer, or 8 building projects for this summer. And honestly, we typically are not in front of you this early in the year asking to bid projects. But in response to the COVID pandemic, the federal government has allocated funds through the American Rescue Plan.
They should get in here.
Can you hear me better? No? I will. All right, let's start this over. Can you hear me? Okay. So in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the government allocated funds through the American Rescue Plan of 2021. And so we've been putting together a lot of plans related to ESSA. And one of the most effective ways for the school district to prevent, prepare, and respond to COVID-19 is replace our heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. And we have a lot of units around the district that are at the end of their life. We've been kind of band-aiding them along. Our maintenance crew does an exceptional job of keeping equipment running. But as funds are available or not available, that's when we pick and choose which ones we need to address each year. And now that these funds are available through ESSER, what we're recommending is that we move forward and take care of a number of HVAC projects around the district that need to be addressed in the next several years. But funding is now available through ESSER grants, once the grants are approved. Now, typically, like I mentioned, I would not be in front of you until the fall, asking for request of bid for summer of 2022. But because many school districts are taking advantage of these ESSER funds for HVAC projects, these equipment is going to be extremely high demand. If we don't get a request of bid out now, which takes in months for the design, for the architects and engineers to design the project, we would be out in the streets to bid in the fall. We're looking at, instead of early part of the calendar year, January, February, which we normally would be actually bidding out for October timeframe. And then we are able to get it approved by you, reviewed and approved by you, so that we can award contracts and equipment could be ordered before the end of the calendar year. It is critical that we do consider this now, because if we do not, we will not be able to move forward with those projects in the summer of 2022. In the past, that all projects with HVAC, they start the first day school ends, and we got to be done and up and running and buildings cleaned up and ready to go when the teachers come back in August. So again, what I'm coming forth at this time is that we're looking at several HVAC projects that are listed on the board that was sent to all of you through the board agenda. They include projects at Little John, Huntley, Cheeseboro, Malta, and the Education Center. When you total out the project with contingency costs of 10%, we always allocate the 10% contingency for unforeseen conditions or changes that need to be done. Architect and engineering fees at 9%. The total project cost for all of these projects is estimated just under $7 million. And that would be funding that would be provided through ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, and would be contingent upon the grant approval that we receive from the fund. But this time, what I'm asking for is to bring it back to the next board meeting for approval to request to bid this project. You are not committing to any dollars at this point. That does not come forth until I actually bring the bid results back to you this fall. We see what contractors bid, what the dollars amount, and how they compare to our budget numbers that have been presented by our architects and engineers.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, it's recommended that the board of education be adjourned. We'll do a roll call.
So, second. Yes.
Sarah Moses? Yes. Leah Martin? Yes. Jeremy Moses? Yes. All Ariella? Yes. David Seymour?
Yes.
Casey Madera? Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia Sanchez, for being with us tonight. In less than 2 months, you'll be right here. Time is running out. Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.